In this lecture, we're going to do a little bit of a free flow going through the app as you watch me create it. We're going to create the initial app outline and the item class and some basic dialogues. So first we have to create the project. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to New, and this time it's a Qt Widgets application. I'm going to choose that, and now I'm going to go up to the demo worker again and create an outer folder for this, which we'll continue with. I'll call it Store Inventory App right there. And I'll call the actual project Store Inventory App as well. You can hit the defaults on all of this and pick the kit, hit next and finish, and you will get your initial app. So a couple things to note about the app is we have headers, sources, and forms over here on the left. Headers, sources, and forms. So the headers and sources will be where the .h file and the implementation files and also our main file with main inside of it will go, respectively. And then forms are a special format that Qt uses, which is an XML-based format, a .ui file, and those are going to be the different forms that we use for our app. Now, one thing to note is we really won't spend any time in main.cpp, which has the main function, because it's all set up. It's already set to create an instance of our main window, and it shows it, and then executes the application. So that part's pretty much done for us. The main window.cpp looks like this so far. There's not really much in it. There's a call to a pointer UI, and then it's setup UI, and then it passes this, the main window object, to it, and then a destructor which deletes the UI instance. The main window.h file is also not particularly interesting. It's got some kind of unusual namespace stuff in it, but it really won't affect what we do with the application. And it has the declarations for the constructor and the destructor. We will be modifying this file quite a bit, actually, as well as the main window.cpp file. But to get set up, we're going to just get this initial app that we have already. We're going to add some additional stuff to it. So we're going to right-click the project here, and I'm going to go to Add New File. So Add New, and then we're going to have Qt, and then we have this Qt Designer Form class right here. See, so Qt Designer Form class, and then I'm going to hit choose, and I get some options here for the form template that I'm going to create. And the one that I'm going to select is going to be Dialog Without Buttons template. So Dialog Without Buttons. I'm basically going to decide everything that's on the form. So we'll hit next. And it's probably useful to give this a decent name. And in Qt, the header file and source files are actually all lowercase. That's kind of their convention. You can change it, but I just usually leave that alone. But the class name you should capitalize. We don't have the same restriction like we would in Java where the file name has to exactly match the class name, but it's good to keep them, at least within a similar name, if not the exact name. I would normally capitalize them for that purpose, but the class you definitely have to capitalize. So add item dialog and hit next, and then just hit finish. And you'll notice it creates this form right here. It's very empty. It doesn't really do anything just yet. You'll notice if I go to edit, I now have it under the forms. Now you'll notice that currently it's actually showing it in XML view And we want to usually interact with it in design view though. And through Qt, that's the only way you're really going to be working with it. So typically, I would just say switch mode, go back to here, and interact with it that way. So that's how you interact with the UI. You'll notice there's a toolbar that shows up over here and properties over to the right. And we're going to interact with this when we put stuff on the dialog that we're going to use. But for right now, I'm going to go back to edit, and I'm going to right click the project again. I'm going to go to add new, and again it's going to be a Qt designer form class and a dialog without buttons. And then I'm going to change this one's name to update item dialog. Update item dialog. Hit next, hit finish, and again it gives us this update item dialog. Took it a second to refresh over here, but you'll notice you have a .h file for each of these. So add item and update, and also add item and update for the source files, the .cpp, and also under forms, you have one for each of the GUI forms that we'll be using. Now that wasn't much just yet, but we're going to fill this all out in the upcoming lectures. However, before moving on, I have a little challenge for you, and this one's going to be something you can do hopefully pretty easily. It's actually going to be just a plain old C++ class. It's going to be the item class, and this is going to be fundamental to our program here. The item class is going to represent each of the items that we track with our program, the products. So you can see some description on the screen right now, and you'll see that there is a constructor named item. The class should be item also, capitalized I, please. And you should be able to see that it takes some parameters, a QString name, int quantity, and a QString image file path, which is set with a default value of none.png. You have getters and setters that you should create for each of the properties, and those properties are the QString name, the int quantity, and the QString image file path. Notice also that the getters, since they're not making any modification to the class, should have const as their marking at the end of the prototype. So as a hint, you can choose to create a C++ class, and both the .h and .cpp files will be created for you. So if you make the actual selection of C++ class, it'll actually create both of those for you. So that's your little hint. Go with how we made the additional dialogues. Think about that. And then think about how you might make a plain old class. So pause the video. Give this one your best shot. Come back when you're done, or if you need some help. How did that go for you? Since this was a plain old C++ class, hopefully you didn't have too hard of a time with it. But let's make it together. So we're going to create the item class. I'm going to right-click the project here, go to Add New, as we did before, but this time I'm not under Qt. I'm going to go under C++. I could do these separately, but I'm just going to select C++ class. Hit Choose, then you name the class and it comes up with the file names for you. This one's going to be item, and for this one I'm actually going to go to the trouble of capitalizing the item.cpp and item.h. I'm going to hit next and finish, and there we go. We've got the item.cpp, which is added, and the item.h. So far so good. So for the item.h, you've got the include guards up here, which are generated automatically. That's to prevent multiple inclusion, which you probably knew. And we're going to include QString, because I need that. Then we'll worry about the implementation details in just a moment. I kind of like that tabbed in one more level. There we go. So for the private data, we're going to have a QString name, an int quantity, and a QString image file path. Get rid of some of the extra spaces. And for the constructor, we don't need to know our constructor, so we're going to just reuse this here. Int quantity, quantity, and then qstring image file path equals none.png. And you'll actually have an opportunity to actually put that image in the images file that we have, or just leave it alone and the image just won't show anything. Now we need the setters and getters. So set name takes a qstring. We have get name, which returns a qstring, but it doesn't modify, so we put a const at the end. Set quantity. And then we have get quantity. We have set image file path. And of course, get image file path. So far, so good. Now let's do some implementation. So we've got our .h file pretty good here. I'm going to actually copy all these, and then I'm going to take it over to the .cpp file and paste them. I'm going to give them all bodies and also give them scope resolution. It's showing a lot of anger right now. That's why it keeps turning red, but we don't worry about that. It's no big deal. So I'm just going one by one, and I'm adding these the extra body here, right? So I'm deleting the semicolon of the thing that I copied. You could do them one by one, manually type them. It doesn't really matter. Use the IntelliSense or intelligent sensing. Now item ::: is going to do scope resolution. So I'm going to actually do that between the return type and the identifier of the methods on each of these. Okay, there we go. All right, so I got rid of the majority of the problems. So you notice here, we actually don't put the default value there. You only do that in the header file. But I'll do this name equals name, this quantity equals quantity, and this image file path equals image file path. All right, for set name, pretty easy. This name equals name. Get name is return name. For set quantity, this quantity equals quantity. Get quantity, not a surprise here, return quantity. You could put this quantity here, but it's not necessary. It is necessary here, if you'll remember, because of name shadowing. If you just put quantity, it thinks you're talking about the parameter, so you have to put this in front of it with the arrow to tell it, hey, I'm talking about my field, my data member. For set image file path, same thing here, image file path. We're going to tab that over. Oops. And get image file path right there. So that's pretty much it. So great job. I hope you got that done. Hopefully you got everything similar to what I have. If not, and if it's way off, then make sure that you go through and make sure that you change it. But you should be okay if you were comfortable with classes to begin with. So in the next lecture, we'll be creating the graphical user interfaces, or GUIs, for our main window and 2 dialog boxes. I'll see you over there.